The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is Pete McGilvery with the Office of Environmental Management. Today we're going to go through SWEP Phase Implementation 3. We're going to go through some exciting things for you guys today. Obviously, you guys can see on the screen now the NEPA assignment MOU has officially been signed yesterday, 12/14. So that's why we're having this quick turnaround, because much like anything else, that MOU, when it was signed, it shifted the responsibilities from FHWA over to the department. So this is the third webinar that we've had in this series. There'll continue to be more. And today we're going to go through some of the additional functionality that's being released. But I did want to bring your attention to, as you can see on the screen, we've got the announcement for the MOU. There's a link to the press release. Also on our NEPA assignment page, so on the OEM homepage and under NEPA assignment, it's been updated with the documents as well. You'll be able to have access to the MOU directly, that same press release. We've also added, and you saw an email yesterday, if you haven't received the email, the districts did receive it and should be forwarding it out to you. But we did put together a list of some frequently asked questions. We've been doing this for a little while. We've been out to the districts. We followed up with webinars, and we recognized sort of a consistent theme on some questions that came up fairly often. So we wanted to take that time and that opportunity to put those questions together in one source document with some answers. So all that information is on that website. It's in this location. We encourage you to continue to ask questions. All the districts, you have an assigned project delivery coordinator. Feel free to email your questions to them or talk to them on the phone. And if it seems to be additional common themes that we should go back and update this document, we will. And if we update the document, we'll make sure that we notify everybody that that information's been updated and it's accessible again. Before we get going, one thing I did want to do for you guys is within the webinar interface, I wanted you to do a couple things. Mostly I want you guys to use the chat. With the chat, I want you to accomplish two things for us today. One, if there are several of you watching this webinar from your location, if you could type in the names of the individuals that are watching from your location, that way we can have an accurate record of the attendees for this webinar. It is something that FHWA and future audits and self-assessments will come back and ask us what material was presented and who actually attended. Additionally, the chat is also there for asking questions. We encourage you to ask questions, and we have someone monitoring the chat, and based on the types of questions, we'll stop and answer those questions for you guys as well. Just like the other webinars, you'll notice we tend to record them and make them accessible. We're doing the same thing with this one so that folks that this particular webinar didn't work with their schedule, it popped up without much notice. Everybody's busy. Thursday afternoon's pretty busy for a lot of folks. So we record the information so it can be looked at later. It can also be used as a reference source to be able to go back to when you're actually going in and using the application. So let's go ahead and get going for today's presentation, and we're going to cover phase 3, like I said. When we start these various webinars, I usually like to try to give an overview. Sometimes we don't have an overlap of individuals. Sometimes this might be the first webinar that some of the attendees are actually seeing. So we talk about an overview of the SWEP application. That is the statewide environmental project tracker. It's the system that was developed to basically support those requirements as laid out in the negotiated NEPA assignment memorandum of understanding. We needed to be able to create a one-stop shop to kind of facilitate meeting all the various requirements, but also really kind of make our jobs easier, turning things into electronic approvals, into electronic management, providing a uniform interface to store things and access information, be able to manage the resources as well as work through performance metrics and provide reports and responses to folks. So here's a list of some of the key features. We've gone through several of these. In phase one, we released the environmental project schedules. Hopefully in the districts you guys are working through those various PSM codes, and which is project schedule management codes, which are various milestones in the development of various PD&E studies or NEPA related documents, all the way from a start to some of the intermediate steps until the approval process. There's a separate webinar and a separate training on that as well that's accessible off our training site on OEM that gives an overview of PSM codes. It also provides schedule templates, and there's a lot of great detailed information for how you develop those various environmental document schedules and populate those various PSM codes. In the future, looking at that second one, we'll be focusing on integrating a scope of service tool for the development of PD&E scopes of services. We're fairly close to that. Probably over the next month or so we'll be releasing that. A big part of that SWEP application that we're going to go over, and it's going to be a big part of what we discussed today, is the assigning and moving a document through the review and approval process in a consistent way and in an electronic way. One of the things about SWEP is this certainly is a paperless initiative, and almost throughout universally everything's stored electronically, the approvals are electronic, and that's the intent. I touched on the fact that we really needed to be able to have a consistent and reliable interface, talking about file naming conventions, how things are mapped, making sure that we're retaining documents, things that we do as a department, been doing it since the dawn of time. We do a great job with keeping project files and keeping records and stuff. We needed to just dust it off a little bit and do it consistently statewide to make sure that we could be responsive to questions that come from FHWA and our own leadership. The next one, looking at the self-assessments and audits, those are individual requirements that come out of the negotiated Memorandum of Understanding. You guys are all familiar with quality assurance reviews. The department's been doing them forever. The self-assessment is really just an extension of that. Program reviews, looking at how we follow our processes. They'll focus also a little bit on whether or not we're meeting the requirements of the MOU, but nothing big, nothing scary. This is what we do. And then certainly being able to be responsive to FHWA audits. They have a responsibility that for the first 4 years of that negotiated MOU, they'll come in annually to perform an audit, and we want to be able to provide them a window into the things that are going to be audited in a one system with a one-stop shop. And then of course we've got to be able to see, whether or not we're performing as expected through the system, and certainly being able to keep everything tracked within one system helps us do that. So SWEP is broken up into various components: the project dashboards, the project input setups, the project documentation. There's a quality and performance management piece and a team management piece. Phase 1 and Phase 2 mostly focused on the project dashboards, the project input and setup. We went through how to develop a Type 1. Today we'll go in a little bit more on the project documents. The final two modules, that quality and performance management and team management, aren't components that necessarily go down to the districts. It's mostly to monitor the system and be able to set up teams to go through the various processes. So the focus really is on those top three components. And today we're going to look at those project documents. Now, one of the things that always comes up is, who uses the SWEP system, that statewide environmental project tracking system. You're looking at the district environmental leaders. You're looking at those environmental administrators, those managers, the project development and environment managers, the project managers themselves, the staff, the team managers, the engineering support, the environmental liaisons. Then up here within our office, you're looking at the Office of Environmental Management District Liaisons, those project delivery coordinators, project reviewers, managers. There's components to deal with quality assurance and quality control. So we've got staff. I serve as the State Environmental Quality and Performance Administrator. Eric Whitehead serves as the Quality Assurance and Quality Control Coordinator. He works under me in our unit, so that's part of that staff. And then obviously the Office of General Counsel is a big part of this, either performing normal legal reviews or performing legal sufficiency reviews within the system to make sure our documents meet the muster. We talked about previous topics, and on that website I showed you, there's links to various webinars or short little training sessions or short little videos that go through all these things, whether it's an introduction to SWEP or an overview of record management and retention or all the rest of the items on that list. There are either a webinar or a specific video that you can go back and remind yourself how to do those various things. That's a link to where those videos are located. Again, if you think about on the site, we're under DOT, we're under Office of Environmental Management, and then there's an OEM training site. And if you scroll down, and that's the reason why this is broken, the page is broken just to demonstrate that there's really a lot there, so you just scroll down. And so just by going to this individual link, that'll take you to where those training videos are located. If you have access to SWEPT, and the way you would get access is working through those environmental leaders in the district that would identify you as an individual and associate you with a particular role to work within this secure application. These videos are also uploaded under help within the SWEPT interface as well. A few other things we're going to come back and do videos and webinars on in the future. I talked about that scope of service tool, and then now that we have a approved and executed MOU, now we need to start really focusing on self-assessments and audit support, as well as continue to work with our legal staff on finalizing the pieces for preparing the administrative records. So we'll have follow-up webinars and conversations on those. But for today, we're going to focus on some of the core pieces for you, uploading files, shifting things over to the EDMS, making them available to other applications. We're going to show you the first iteration of the reevaluation form. I called this form at this point Phase 1. It works. It does. There's a few more enhancements that we need to make. There's a few things on there that you kind of have to type in that we'll make those pick lists, and we'll pull some of the information from other locations. I would fully expect that to be updated over the next few days, and we will. And then the last piece here is submitting documents for OEM review and approval. So we're going to show the environmental document submittal form. We're going to show you the process for getting things up to your project delivery coordinators, and then demonstrate the process for how things flow through that process up here and provide feedback to you. So that said, we're going to move on to the demonstration portion of this, and I'm going to turn it over to Mike Konikoff, who is one of our lead developers, and we're going to let Mike start giving us an overview and a demonstration. So Mike, I'm going to turn you into a presenter, and you should be able to press play to show your screen and unmute yourself, and you should be ready to go.
All right, thank you, Pete. So what we're looking at here is our testing and training version of this website, so that I can run through some of these processes without affecting real projects, although the data does come from work program, so much of it does look accurate. On your home page, you'll have a list of my projects. I'm logged in as a project manager for District 1, so you're seeing a list of District 1 projects where I am the project manager, or I have some other assignment on the project. I may have been an editor. And you can click on the link or control click to open the project page in a new tab. And every project has kind of a home page that shows the basic information about the project, map, as well as who's on the district project team, the OEM reviewers who are automatically assigned, and other contacts, the project schedule, and then the thing we're going to talk about next is the project documents. These are organized into folders. The folders are consistent across the different document class of action types. You'll see more or less options available depending on the class of action type, but essentially it's going to start off with not much in there for a new project. What you will see are items that you can generate in SWEPT. So on our testing server, you could generate a scope of services. As Pete mentioned, that's coming soon. You can do a Type 2 checklist in production now. When the item has already been created, for example, this Type 2 checklist has been created, you can edit it. There's a submittal ongoing for this project that can be edited. Status of environmental certification can be created. You can also upload those items. So for a project, let's say you're doing a reevaluation, that would be the point in time when you would upload these types of documents into SWEPT for review. So I'm going to show you an example of that. You click the upload button at the folder level, and it gives you options for what is the product that you're uploading. So for example, I could be uploading a corridor report. I would navigate to the file. It picks up the document name from the file, but you can rename it. It picks up the publication date from the file last modified date. You can change it if needed. And then it asks you a few short series of questions. Is this an attorney work product? If it is, then the next two questions are grayed out, which are, is this document part of the administrative record, and is this document exempt from public record? If it's an attorney work product, the answers for those are going to be no, it's not part of the admin record, and yes, it's exempt from public record. Otherwise, you can choose those answers. They default to yes, admin record, and not exempt from public. The other thing you can do on this dialog is indicate whether this file supports other topics. So it will give you a list of the entire set of folders and topics. So if your corridor report or the file that you're uploading happens to support more than one topic, you can do that and as it makes sense for that file. And then you can save. You can see now that the same file has been attached to two different products in the planning folder. You can edit those where you'd be given that dialog again and can change any of the attributes associated with other products if needed. You can delete the file if you choose. If you delete a file that is associated with other products, it will ask you whether you only want to remove it from the current product. Let's say you made a mistake and checked sub-area report and you only meant to do corridor report, you could do that option, or you could completely delete the file.
Hey Mike, can you go to the upload edit? I just wanted to talk a little bit more about that since
Sure.
you had it up. Okay, so in this particular interface, one of the things I want folks to think about is sort of behind the scenes, and we went into a lot of discussion on this in the data management naming convention piece, for how things need to be stored in the right location. They've got to be named appropriately so that we can be assured that we are maintaining our records to standard, which we've already been doing as a department. We've just been doing it lots of different ways. This is a common way that we're going to be doing it in the future. But for those of you that have interacted with the EDMS, the Electronic Document Management System, you know it's very cumbersome. In the end, what we're doing here is we're taking all of those various attributes that you would normally have to fill out for every one of those documents to get it in the right spot, because you put something in an electronic file, you've got to be able to pull it out. Different document groups and types are tied to different retention schedules, and you really have to manage it that way. But we've distilled all those various attributes down to just some common ones that we need from you while we're uploading a document. So for instance, when you're working within a project, we already know what FM, we already know what project, we already know what class of action, we already know all of the various details that are behind the scenes filling out that attribute information. But you're going and attaching the document, and then down below where it says attorney work product, administrative record and stuff, we're defaulting to what should be the answer probably 95% of the time. So you wouldn't really necessarily have to go in and update those. But if you had something that belonged in the project file that was an attorney work product, some communication with OGC that you wanted to make sure was in the file but not part of the normal project file and not part of the administrative record, you could change the selection to, yes, this is an email from OGC about this project and it's considered attorney work product, and you can upload it and it will be stored in a separate location. It's available to us. It's available, you know, us being the district, you guys are putting that up there, it's available to us, but it doesn't go into the project file and it doesn't go into the administrative record. So I just wanted to kind of hit that probably 95% of the time, those radio buttons, that attorney work product, admin record, and public record, all of those things, probably 95% of the time, what we have selected up there is exactly what is needed. But if you need to make a change, you have the ability to, and we're just demonstrating that. So behind the scenes, those are kind of attributes that are getting sent over with a document as it's stored into EDMS. The other thing Mike was just demonstrating, where you can take an individual file and you can attach it one time in multiple locations. Perhaps a corridor report wasn't a good example, but maybe a better example to kind of get it across is perhaps you have an email correspondence that was sent between ourselves and the Army Corps of Engineers and National Marine Fisheries and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and that one email you wanted to make sure that it was captured under agency coordination and it was tied to all three of those agencies, so that if you were coming in to see what coordination you had with each of those agencies, that same one email would show up, is probably a better example of when you would be able to tie this one document to several categories. So the document's only being stored one time, but we're associating it that this information, if you're looking for it, is also found in this one document. So I just want to hit on that, Mike, and from there, just continue on.
Thank you, Pete. So I'm just showing a little further details on the correspondence piece. You do get to enter who the correspondence is from and who it's to, and as Pete mentioned, it can support multiple products in the file. So you are able to upload documents to the file at any point, and send them to EDMS at any point. So for example, if you wanted to send the file to EDMS so that it would show up in another system like PSEE, you can click the Send to EDMS button, and if PSEE is linked to those files, it would appear in PSEE once it's been sent to EDMS. The other point in time when these are sent to EDMS is when the final document is approved. Anything that hasn't been sent to EDMS already that's in the project file will automatically be sent. But as I mentioned, you can send them individually. There's a send button. It will queue the file. You can see here it's the same file, so they're both the files in the queue once. The queue is processed nightly at this point. We are going to be increasing the frequency of that to within minutes. Once it has been processed and is in EDMS, you will see an EDMS document number, which will link you to the document in the Enterprise document viewer. if you need to access it there to confirm.
Hey, Mike, before you jump on one more time, I just saw a question come in about whether or not we're uploading draft documents in SWEP for review and ERC, and the answer is no. Your draft documents are being uploaded into ERC. You will use the environmental document submittal form within SWEP to document that everything is in ERC and then it's uploaded and then it's ready. That will be sent to the OEM project delivery coordinator, who will go through and look at the submittal in ERC and confirm that everything is there. You'll either receive an email back saying everything is good to go, or you'll see a request for some additional information. Assuming everything is good to go, everything just continues forth in ERC as you normally would. And it's just really when you're ready to move to the environmental document submittal status of request for approval, that's when you need to make sure your documents are uploaded into SWEP. But just like anything else, if you put a document up here and then you change it or you update it, or you want to even, for your own file, you've had a version that was important that you did want to keep and another version later, you can continue to upload documents or replace or remove other documents within the system. Thanks, Mike. Keep going. Mike, are you on mute?
Sorry. The next thing I want to show you is the reevaluation form. You can create these through the button on the project file. That will open the electronic form, which is the electronic version of the Word document that you've all used in the past. You fill out the form. This one has some values pre-filled out, answering all the questions. Going through the project planning consistency, evaluation of changes and impacts, answering all the questions. When you're doing your initial submittal, as Pete mentioned, you don't need to upload all of the documentation here. You would do that in ERC, but what we would expect is that for each of these items, you would refer to what the file is in ERC, so that when you create a PDF of this reeval form and include that with your ERC submission, there's a crosswalk. So you go through and answer all those. Evaluation of major design changes, revised design criteria, commitment status, status of permits, the conclusion, and then OEM concurrence, whether or not OEM signature is required, and then the date of consultation with OEM. There is an upload document button that works very similar to what we just saw on the project file, where you choose a file and then you select which questions that support. So when you're doing your request for approval, is the point where these would be required to be on the reeval. So there's also several other buttons at the bottom of the screen. A save draft. So a project data entry person, for example, a consultant, can start this form and then save draft. They'll be able to send that draft up to their project manager for review. Project manager will receive an email. So I have an example of that. Email. So here is a request to review. There's a link to the reeval form, and the project manager can then send for approval. That will send it to the district environmental manager, who can then sign the reevaluation form. and create a PDF. The next step in the process, it depends on where the project is, but what I'm going to show you next is
so Mike, can we stop for a second? Can you go back? Can you go back on that one real quick? There was a couple things I wanted to point out, and there was a question about whether or not there was a size limit on files that are going into SWEP. Could you maybe tackle that one?
I think there is obviously a theoretical limit, but in general, no. I mean, it may be like 2 gigabytes or something ridiculously large. The limiting factor there is really probably going to be your network. Usually upload speeds are slower than download speeds. It will tell you if your file's over a certain size. This may take a while. If you get into a certain size, you may start to see some timeouts, in which case you would probably need to contact the help desk. But I think we've tested up to several megabytes without issue.
Yeah, well, and I think way beyond that, I think several hundred megabytes. But one of the things, kind of just following up on that, because I know that individuals that have been outside the firewall and had to remote in to store stuff in the EDMS, there was a connectivity issue and there was a file size conflict that we're in a completely different architecture, so that won't happen. This is really your network to our network, so things should be better. If you experience any problems, just let us know at the help desk, and we'll be happy to take care of it. One other thing, just kind of focused on this reevaluation form for a minute before you move on. Obviously, it's set up that if the reevaluation after consultation with OEM, it doesn't require a need to come up to OEM, then just very similar to a Type 1 form, it just, you document that the coordination happened and on what date, but then similar to the Type 1 form, the approval stays at the district and it flows from the project manager over to the environmental manager, and they sign off on it just like that. If through consultation it's determined that it really should come up to OEM, that's been the determination, then by simply saying yes, then the process would flow a little past that. It would still go from the project manager to the district environmental manager, and then it would continue on through the process up here. And the next form that Mike's going to show, which I stopped him from, is sort of that environmental document submittal piece that accompanies this. So I'm just going to hand it back to you, but I did want to handle that.
One question just came in related to what you just said, and the question is, what constitutes a consultation with OEM for a reevaluation? Is this a teleconference with OEM?
The answer is yes. That's a teleconference. So you have your project delivery coordinators. You guys are meeting monthly with them. Whether that happens in a monthly coordination meeting where you discuss the project specifics and you make that determination, you just document that the conversation happens. If it doesn't happen in one of those monthly coordination meetings, it's a simple phone call with folks up here, whoever your project delivery coordinator contact is, and if it sounds like they need to involve some other folks, they'll certainly do that. But it would be handled on a case-by-case basis with the project delivery coordinator, and it really depends on where you guys are talking about your projects. If something can wait and you do it at your monthly meetings, that's great. If something comes up, just contact them, and I'm sure between you guys you'll work it out. Thanks, Ruth. Mike, can we go back to you?
Thanks, Pete. So whether the document you're doing is a reeval, a Type 2 checklist, or an EA or draft EIS or EIS, the thing, as Pete mentioned, that kind of drives the review of that document is the environmental document submittal form. There is a link to the submittal form in the project file. You can also open it directly from the navigation menu and type in an FM number to load it for a particular project. It always kind of starts where it left off. So you're going to use this same form throughout the review process. In this case, we're looking at a Type 2 CE. And the last thing that was done was OEM comment resolution. Just to back up a little, the first step would be an initial submittal, and this project has gone through the initial already. At the bottom of the submittal form, there's a history that kind of shows how it's flowed. So in this case, this document was drafted and sent to the PM. The PM sent it up for review to the District Environmental Manager and Project Delivery Manager. Both of those individuals certify that the submittal is correct and ready for review. Then the Project Delivery Coordinator will confirm that submittal, which then indicates that the ERC review can proceed. Each of those sets of certifications and approvals have the option to send back for more information, in which case it puts it back into a draft state and the process continues after the submittal has been corrected or updated. Also, the district can withdraw a submittal if they send it up for review or certified and then it was determined that something was missing and it needed to be withdrawn. That can also occur. This particular project, as I mentioned, has gone through OEM comment resolution. That's a similar process. This would be after comments had been received from ERC and incorporated into the document. It can go through an OEM comment resolution submittal, which goes through the same type of workflow. And then what I'm going to show you next is the request for approval. So for the request for approval, we asked you to provide a brief project description. This is what will appear on the cover page. If it's an EA, EIS, or certain other documents. For a Type 2, what will happen is the Type 2 itself will be form itself will be updated once the approval is reached. So you can put in a brief project description. I'm just going to copy from the project name. District contact is an autocomplete list. This is the person who will appear as the district contact on those cover pages, and it can be any one within the district. I'll just choose one of our test users. For reevaluations, you would say yes, and then it would ask you the reevaluation type. In this case, we're doing a Type 2, so it's no. It picks up the project phase. You can choose another one if needed, whether or not it's a LAP project and the LAP agency, the anticipated letting type, the contents of the submittal, the status of those documents. So again, an electronic version of the Word form that you've all seen. Whether the document has been sent to the cooperating agency and either the date it was sent or the date it will be sent, the district quality control completion date, and then the district environmental lead. You can save the submittal as draft or send for review. I'm going to send it up for review. It tells me it's going to send it to the district environmental manager and project development manager for review. It gives me a link to the PDF of that submittal form if I need it for any reason, and an email is then received. So here's an example of that email. This is going to the district environmental manager and project development manager. They'll get a link. They'll come into the form. So I'm going to log in as one of those individuals. The form loads. Because there's a couple people who have to sign, the form is read-only. If something needs to be changed, the district environmental manager or project development manager can say need more information, add a comment, and send it back to the PM, assuming everything is complete and ready for review or approval. So for a request for approval, you would expect that all the documents are in SWEPT. If you notice at the top of the submittal form, there's a link. That link will take you over to the project file where it can be verified that all the required documents are in place. Once that's done, you can certify, add a comment. This will be the district environmental manager certifies. Okay, and it can again be withdrawn if needed. I'm going to log in as the project development manager. Same form. Once the second certification is on there, it will be submitted to OEM for further review. Now OEM receives an email. The project delivery coordinator will get a link to confirm the submittal. So I will log out and show you what that looks like. So the project delivery coordinator has received let me find the right email. They receive a review request. They'll have a link. Sorry, I just need to log in as the right person. This is District 1. So the OEM project delivery coordinator will be receiving submittals in various statuses. Submittals that need to be confirmed, submittals that need to be confirmed for public availability, legal sufficiency, confirmation, as well as the environmental document confirmation. And I apologize, I lost the link and then I found it. This is the link that the project delivery coordinator receives and goes to confirm the submittal. They also have a link to the project page where they can review the project file. They have a PDF of the submittal, and then their options are to confirm the submittal is complete and ready for review, or to return it for more information with comments, which will send it back to the district. So assuming they confirm, the district receives an email letting them know that the submittal has been confirmed and that ERC review can begin. For a request for approval, an email goes up to the OEM director, letting them know that the document is ready for approval. And I have an example of what that form looks like.
Yeah, and Mike, it actually goes through several folks before that. So it goes up to the project delivery coordinators, who they've obviously just confirmed that the documents are uploaded and swept. They reflect all the various. So assuming we're on approval, the documents are all there. Everything is as expected. Depending on the nature of the the action that's being reviewed, it can follow a couple of different paths. Things that have a 4F determination or things that are EISs, would need to complete legal sufficiency review. If there is legal reviews, those also happen. But assuming we've gotten to the point, everybody's happy, and it's just a type 2, for instance, and it's coming up, it goes to the project delivery coordinators. They confirm everything's there. Everybody gets an email back that it's good to go. Then Javier and Margie get the document next. They'll be the ones reviewing it, again, making a recommendation to Ken for his approval. And then once both Javier and Margie recommend the approval for the document, Ken receives an email with a link to go in and approve that document. And like I said, depending on the nature of the document, there's a slightly different process depending on the path that it has to take in order to get to that approval. But ultimately, for Ken to sign everything, he needs to get approval from Javier's position and Margie's position, so that they give him those assurances, and those assurances flow up from the project delivery coordinators and the districts.
Thank you for clarifying, Pete. This is an example of what the project delivery coordinator would receive for that request for approval. I think the one I was showing before was for a different type of submittal, which would be an initial or a comment resolution. So in this case, they confirm the submittal is ready for environmental process administrator review, as Pete mentioned. That, again, will kick off an email to those individuals.
And copies to the district. So everybody who's on the team that's part of this, all the various emails, everybody gets copied. So the district PM, the district environmental manager, and the project delivery manager, as every step throughout the process and an email is generated, everybody who's part of that process is either they receive the email directly or they're copied on the responses.
Thank you. So once the project delivery coordinator confirms, they get a confirmation page. Those emails are sent. Now the environmental process administrators will follow their link. They get a similar set of options, links to the project file, the submittal form itself, confirming the submittal is ready. Environmental review administrator confirms. And now second environmental review administrator oops. Sorry. Got the right login. Second environmental review administrator confirms. Or can return it to the district for more information. You can see the approval history appears at the bottom of the form. Once the second environmental review administrator has confirmed the submittal, it's sent to the OEM director for final approval. The OEM director then has a button to approve. Once the OEM director approves the final document, several different things happen. One is, for example, for a Type 2, their signature will be inserted into the Type 2 in, I think it's Section 8, and a PDF of that Type 2 is generated and stored in the project file. Also, all of the documents are queued to be sent to EDMS if they haven't been sent already. And emails go out to everyone involved, district, and so forth about the document is ready for, has been approved and is available on SWEPT.
And then, Mike, were you going to show an example of the cover pages with signature?
Yeah, let me pull that up.
And while Mike is pulling that up, one of the questions that came in that we did answer within the chat was whether or not consultants would have access to SWEPT and be able to upload documents and stuff. So to have access to SWEPT, it's really the district environmental leadership that will make that determination. Within SWEPT, you get assigned certain roles, and those roles allow you to do certain things. For our consultant community, depending on the district and what they want to authorize, they can make you a data entry person that has the ability to edit things and upload documents. They could even make you a project manager and stuff. But a consultant couldn't serve in any of the approval process. So any approvals that happen within the system, that happens always by a DOT person. Those district environmental managers, the project delivery managers, and the OEM staff up here as well. But this system doesn't care whether you're internal or external. Really, it cares whether or not you have been authorized to perform a certain function within the system. And it's your district environmental leadership that will make the request to us to tell us who should have access to the system and what role and level of responsibility they should have. Mike, were you able to find the...
Yes. So we've got many different examples of cover pages. Actually, the first one I want to show is just the Type 2. So as part of that process that we just saw of approval, Ken's signature is inserted into the document along with the date. Again, this is test data, so but when you do it in production, you will see Ken's signature, the date, and his name appear beneath. We also have cover pages for FONSIs, EAs, obviously EISs, and let me pull up an example. So here's an example of an EA cover page. So once that EA reaches either in this case, approval for public availability, cover page is generated and stored in the project file. The signature...
I was just going to say it's obviously test data because I'm not signing anything, and there's my signature on there. And yes, my signature really looks like that.
If the OEM director delegates their authority to anyone within OEM, that person's signature will appear in place of Ken's, and it'll say for Ken Moorfield. The project contact information that I showed you on the environmental document submittal form appears, as well as the project description. This is some test text, but that's where it would appear.
As well as while you've got it on that screen, can you zoom in a little bit? And you'll notice above the signature, there's the paragraph now that will be included on all the various cover memos, the cover pages for all of our documents. The date there is when we were testing, but obviously the date in that last line will be reflective of 12/14/2016. For those that are online now, there were a couple Type 1 categorical exclusions that got processed yesterday afternoon, and because it was after 1 o'clock when the MOU got signed, if you go in and you look at those Type 1s, you'll actually see that same paragraph showing up in right above the signature on the Type 1. So again, that's a requirement we have based in the MOU, just to be a disclosure to folks that are interacting with us and having access to that information. I think Mike is about to show you. So we'll let him go ahead and grab that. I think other than Mike pulling that up, that was really what we wanted to show for you today. So we're going to hang out here while he's pulling that up and just ask whether or not anybody has any additional questions for this webinar. And if you do, please type them in the chat. Yeah, perfect. And then can you produce the PDF version of that? And then go to the end. And there it is right above the signature. So if you zoom in a little bit, it's kind of hard to read from where you're at. Great. So there's some of it actually already happening in production. Okay. Let's see, do we have any other questions, Ruth?
Going forward, do we have to send previously approved Type 1 CE documents through the SWEP system?
Not previously approved. So day forward is all Type 1s will be processed through SWEP. No more paper form. As of yesterday afternoon, everything comes in through SWEP. There's no need to backload anything. You did see, I'm not sure who asked the question, but we did send out an email to the district environmental leadership letting them know that we had completed our QAR of Type 1s and Type 2s that we were bound to through our programmatic agreement with FHWA that ran from October 30th, 2015 to October 29th, 2016. So we've already looked at those Type 1s and Type 2s that were part of that reporting period. But today, going forward, today's the 15th of December, here forward, all your Type 1s and all of the other documents should be flowing through SWEP. You don't have to backload any of the Type 1s. Now, one of the things, and you will need to kind of work with your project coordinator, project delivery coordinators, because we have lots of active projects, and if the approval is happening after today, we need to make sure that when we get to that approval stage, that the documents are uploaded in SWEP and they're part of the project record and accessible. So make sure that you start working through that process. For older projects, and maybe you're just coming online to do a reevaluation, it's at that reevaluation stage that we would expect you to go dig into your document inventory and start pulling that stuff forward as part of the record, so that when you're doing the reevaluation, those files are also accessible within the system. It's stored together. They're put into the right file structure, the right naming convention, and they become accessible. But there won't be a big movement to go back and start pulling other stuff from the past into the system. But we'll use that reevaluation point as the opportunity to pull those files into the system at whatever the schedule is for those. Any other questions at this point? No? Okay. We appreciate everybody's time, and as soon as this recording is finished processing, we'll make it available. We will have future webinars as well on those various topics. We'll make those announcements as they become available. Anticipate weeks, probably after the holidays for things. What is the
We just got one more question.
Okay, what was the question?
Is there a generic tracking timeline or flow chart that can be emailed to external people following the process?
Depending on what. So let me, Mike, can you give it back to me? Or actually, you're on the screen. Can you go to our OEM homepage? And then under more, I think. And then I think PSM codes is in the second. Keep going down under publications. Yeah, it's about fifth from the bottom, I think. Yeah, click on that. And we can send out this link to everybody. So in here, there are various document schedules and templates that are available through various formats that kind of show, you know, whether you're doing a Type 2 or Type 2 with design or EA, EIS, or SEER. There's a recording on there that talks through the schedules themselves and what the activities are and what the PSM codes are and how to pull that stuff forward. And there's a companion PowerPoint as well. So there should be lots of resources there to kind of dig into that question.
And one more question.
Okay.
We upload the approved SEER into SWEPT.
So at this point, there's no requirement for the SEERs at this point, but a project is a project is a project. And so having the ability to search on an FM, create it as a project, and putting the approved documents in here certainly helps put it into a consistent format, puts it into the EDMS, allows us to manage it and access it. I do think we're heading in that direction anyway, but certainly our biggest priorities at this point were to really make sure that we met the requirements that we agreed to within the MOU that was recently negotiated. But within SWEPT, a project is a project. You're more than welcome to set up a SEER and upload the documentation. Use this as your electronic project file. It will move things over to EDMS. It will all be accessible within the same system. You know, obviously, you know, with SEERs, none of those approvals occur within SWEPT. It's all at the district level. But certainly, you know, you can take that opportunity to put those documents in here. Anything else?
That is it. No more questions in this question box.
Okay. Well, we appreciate everybody's time, and enjoy the holidays if we don't have a chance to speak to you. Obviously, if there are any questions, funnel them through your project delivery coordinators up here. We will obviously follow up with a link to the webinar. I'll also send out a link to these PSM codes so you can get to it a little bit easier, and we look forward to speaking to you in future webinars as well. Take care. Have a great day.